In the vast emptiness, where light is a luxury and darkness the default, there exists a being that has burned relentlessly for over 4 billion years. No one truly knows where it began. No one can say for sure how it will end. Yet every morning, when gentle rays slip through the leaves, when the early breeze carries a quiet warmth across the earth, we are being brushed by an ancient memory of the cosmos, a whisper from the burning heart of space, the sun. The sun is not merely a glowing sphere suspended in the sky. It is a storm of nuclear fire, a machine of creation and destruction programmed since the dawn of time, where hydrogen atoms are crushed in eternal agony, fusing into helium in pulses of searing light. It has no solid surface to stand on, no boundaries to defy, no clear ending to predict. Only an ocean of plasma boiling, twisting, raging as though holding within it a secret too immense to reveal. The sunlight you see is not light from the present. It is light that began its journey hundreds of thousands of years ago, clawing its way out of the sun's core, battling through layers of convection and magnetic storms, before flying through space for over 8 minutes to finally reach your skin. When it touches you, remember it started its journey before humans even knew how to write, to read, or to dream. And so, the sun becomes the silent storyteller of the universe. But it doesn't just tell the tale, it is the tale. It is the reason Earth does not drift endlessly into oblivion. It is the source of every breath, every growing leaf, every river flowing toward the sea. It teaches life how to begin, how to flourish, and it, too, will end it. For one day, the sun will cease its quiet burning, swelling into a red giant fever devouring everything, including Earth, before collapsing into a cold, pale soul of ash, a white dwarf, alone in the dark. We owe the sun everything, but we should also fear it as we fear a god who gives blessings with one hand and destruction with the other. When it flares in fury, solar storms can rip satellites from the sky, sever global communication, shut down power grids, and plunge the world into silence. A single twitch of its magnetic heart without sound, without warning, could rewind civilization to the Stone Age. And that is just a fleeting disturbance in its slumber. So what is the sun, really? A god, a mother, a destroyer? Or simply a flicker of fire in a sky that never ends? The answer does not lie in textbooks or laboratories. It lies in how you feel when standing alone in the golden light of dusk, when you look up and realize everything beautiful you had ever known, life, color, love, time, began with that flame. And one day, when that flame fades, all that remains will be a hush of ash. The structure of the sun, layers of a burning soul. If the sun were a living being, it would have no skin, no flesh, no bones. Instead, it possesses swirling layers of matter burning, coaling, and convulsing in endless magnetic seizures, as if it were guarding an ancient fury too immense to release. Each layer is a doorway, opening to a different realm where temperature, pressure, light, and even time obey no laws known to humankind. It is a body that neither sleeps nor breathes, yet lives with a violence so profound that all other life forms appear as quiet side effects. At its core lies a hidden heart of black brightness where it all begins. Here, the pressure is 250 billion times the Earth's atmosphere, and the temperature soars to a mind-breaking 15 million degrees Celsius. There are no flames as we know them, no crackling fire, only the unbearable compression of hydrogen atoms. These tiny particles are crushed to the point of identity loss, fusing into helium in a perpetual explosion repeated trillions upon trillions of times each second. There is no light here, the density is too great. And yet, paradoxically, light is born in total darkness. From the core, energy cannot simply escape. It is imprisoned in the next layer, the radiative zone. Here, light does not travel like a beam, but stumbles and collides with matter trapped in a cosmic hall of mirrors. A single photon can spend hundreds of thousands of years trying to break free, bouncing in chaos like a lost soul wandering a labyrinth of heat. Above that lies the convective zone, an entirely different kingdom. Here, plasma churns and boils, rising and falling in massive currents like lava with a will. Energy is no longer passed quietly through light, but through violent physical motion. Towering waves of molten fire surge upward, each one hundreds of Earths tall, before collapsing inward again. From afar, the sun seems to be breathing calmly, almost peacefully. But it is the breath of something that has never known peace. Above that is what we foolishly call the surface of the sun, the photosphere. But in truth, there is no surface. The photosphere is merely the edge where light finally escapes into the universe, like a prisoner slipping through a crack. It gleams like a golden sea, but it is only the illusion of calm, a veil drawn over the chaos below. And beyond the veil lies the chromosphere, a thin crimson border only visible during a total eclipse. It is the lip of a cosmic volcano, glowing hotter than the surface beneath it, where magnetic rifts spew gas in jagged eruptions. Light here is unstable, trembling, flashing, screaming into the void. But it does not end there, for the sun has a second soul, the corona. This is the layer that defies all logic, baffling even the sharpest scientific minds. Why is it hundreds of times hotter than the surface? How can something further from the core burn brighter? The temperature here reaches 1 to 5 million degrees Celsius, while the surface beneath simmers at just 6,000. It is as though the sun wears an invisible crown of fire, untouchable, unexplainable, a shimmering halo that incinerates anything daring enough to draw near. From the corona, solar wind escapes a breath of the sun itself, carrying plasma fragments throughout the solar system. Sometimes, it crashes into Earth, painting the polar skies with silent, dancing auroras, terrifyingly beautiful warnings that we live beneath the breath of a god. And so, the sun's structure is not merely a stack of layers like a cosmic cake. It is a sequence of ancient emotions, burning like a dream, yet capable of turning nightmare in an instant. Each layer does not only carry heat, it carries memory, a whisper from the past, a hidden truth about the future, and a single, inescapable message: even eternal fire has an ending. Astonishing physical characteristics, numbers not to calculate, but to fear. Some numbers aren't meant to be measured, they're meant to leave us speechless. Some proportions aren't for equations, but for awe. When we speak of the sun, we are no longer the rulers of Earth. Standing with rulers and formulas, we become small beings looking up at a titanic presence, trying to grasp the ungraspable, explain what was never meant to be explained. Let us begin with the most obvious. Size. The sun spans over 1.39 million kilometers in diameter, more than 109 times the size of Earth. If it were hollow, it could fit over 1.3 million Earths inside its burning shell and still have room to spare. Yet the sun is far from hollow, it is densely packed, a colossus containing 99.86% of the entire mass of the solar system. Every planet, asteroid, and comet you've ever heard of combined are nothing more than the dust left behind when the sun was born. The sun is massive, it is vast, but it is also unimaginably hot. At its core, the temperature reaches 15 million degrees Celsius, hot enough to tear apart atomic nuclei, hot enough to melt the very idea of matter. And ironically, it is this unbearable heat that makes life possible, allowing hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, to fuse into helium through a chain reaction of nuclear fusion, releasing the light that nourishes Earth. Even more astonishing, the sun spins, but not like Earth. Being a ball of plasma, its equator spins faster than its poles, about 25 days at the equator, and 35 days near the poles. This difference twists the sun's magnetic fields like tangled wires, creating monstrous loops of energy that bowl to the surface and erupt, sometimes violently hurling billions of tons of plasma into space. And light, you may think it's simple. Sunlight takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds to reach Earth. That's true, but only the final leg. Before that, the light that warms your face took between 100,000 and 1 million years to escape the sun's core, trapped, scattered, slowed within the dense, raging plasma like a soul condemned to wander its birthplace. When it finally emerges, it is not just light, it is a survivor, a warrior that has battled millennia of darkness to touch your skin. Then there's gravity. The sun's gravitational pull is so intense that if Earth drifted just a little off its path, it would be sucked in, vaporized midair, like a raindrop falling into boiling oil. And yet, this same invisible force orchestrates a dance so precise that every planet, from distant Neptune to little Mercury, follows its steps like partners in an eternal waltz, choreographed not by music, but by attraction. The sun never sleeps, it never pauses. Every second, it releases energy equivalent to millions of nuclear bombs, yet it delivers it gently, steadily, so that we may live, love, breathe, and dream. And perhaps the most humbling thing about the sun is not its power but the serenity with which it wields that power. No roar, no demand, no announcement, it just burns, as if it must. As if it was born not to shine but to count down, not in numbers but in flame. We call it physics, but sometimes it feels more like a miracle waiting to be understood. The sun's role in Earth's life, the breath that awakened the world. If life is a symphony, then the sun is its first violin, the one that drew the opening notes from silence. It is not just light, not just warmth, it is the one who woke life from the slumber of the cosmos, the very breath that stirred the stillness of a barren world. Once, Earth was nothing more than a cold stone adrift in the dark, no green, no water, no sound. Then the sun appeared, like a cosmic flame, casting its first rays upon the silent surface. That light, brief though it may have seemed, was enough to melt the ice, form an atmosphere, open the path for rivers to flow, for roots to dig, for life to bloom. And so, in one fleeting moment between two eternal voices, something miraculous happened. Life began. From every blade of grass, every beating heart, every trickling stream, all draw their existence from the sun, as if it were a distant command from a realm where time has no name. Each morning, as the sky shifts from gray to gold, it is not merely a new day rising, it is a reassurance. The sun still shines, and life still goes on. The sun is the silent mother we never touch. It does not intervene, it does not command. And yet, all life orbits it, both in physics and in spirit. Because of it, plants perform photosynthesis, creating oxygen. Because of it, oceans evaporate into clouds, returning as rain. Because of it, ice thaws, rivers surge, soul softens. Without the sun, Earth would become a frozen grave in the Milky Way, ruled by death in an eternal hush. But the sun's role reaches further than biology. It governs the inner clock of all beings. The human heartbeat, sleep patterns, the breeding of animals, the rhythm of harvests, everything bends to the light and shadow the sun paints across the sky. Trees know when to bloom, birds know when to fly north. Humans know when to rise and when to rest, because the sun not only lights space, it lights the mind. And stranger still, its light heals. A child steps outside after the rain, arms outstretched toward the light, and suddenly, laughter returns. An old man warms himself in the morning sun, eyes closed, whispering silently to something older than memory. This light does not merely warm the body, it soothes the soul, as if whispering, "You're still alive, I am still here." But like all ancient gods, the sun has two faces. When it grows angry, solar storms can rip through Earth's magnetic field, knocking out power grids, disrupting radio waves, even threatening the digital spine of our civilization. One strong eruption aimed at Earth could turn an ordinary day into the edge of apocalypse. So the sun is not just a savior, it is also the one who holds the key to our end. We live in its light, but we could vanish in the blink of its eye. And yet, today, when you step outside, when you look up, you will still see this truth. The sun still shines just as it always has, as it does now, and as if it always will. No promises, no words, just the quiet presence of something that gave birth to life and now calmly counts down toward its death in the form of gentle morning light. Notable solar phenomena, the wrath of a silent god. We often speak of the sun as a symbol of warmth, light, and eternal calm shining gently upon the earth, But it is a great mistake to believe that a being older than time itself, one that generates the energy of millions of nuclear bombs every second, could be harmless. No, the sun is not gentle. It is simply calm, and nothing is more dangerous than a silence that lasts too long. Beneath the soft gold of every sunrise, terrifying events unfold like the subtle spasms of a cosmic heart riddled with magnetic madness. There are days when strange scars appear across the sun's surface, sunspots. These are dark patches, not because they are cold, but because the magnetic fields there are so twisted and dense that light itself cannot escape. They are omens, silent signs that energy is building beneath the surface, like storm clouds gathering along the horizon, waiting to explode. And when that energy erupts, it becomes what we call a solar flare. A sudden flash of brilliance rips across the plasma, a blade of fire slicing through the void. Within minutes, it releases the energy of billions of atomic bombs, hurling X-rays and radio waves into space at near light speed, powerful enough to disrupt satellites, sever communications, scramble GPS, and threaten entire electrical infrastructures. But sometimes, the sun doesn't just flash, it throws pieces of itself into space. This is the coronal mass ejection, CME, an immense, furious outburst where billions of tons of charged plasma are blasted from the sun's surface, hurtling across the solar system at millions of kilometers per hour. If we're lucky, they miss us. Though when one aims directly at Earth, we wait with bated breath, knowing that all our technology could be reduced to silence in the face of this cosmic tempest. And in both destruction and wonder, another phenomenon emerges, one of haunting beauty: auroras. When solar particles slam into Earth's magnetic field, they are drawn toward the poles, colliding with atmospheric gases and igniting the sky in surreal colors. Green, violet, red, dancing across the stars like a silent warning etched in light, reminding us that we are constantly under the influence of forces far beyond our control. Then comes a mystery yet to be solved: coronal holes. These are vast, dark regions on the sun where magnetic fields open and release high-speed solar wind. We don't yet understand why they form, nor what role they play in the life or death of the sun. But one thing is certain: they are not wounds, they are the breath of a titan holding the entire solar system in the stillness of a blink. These phenomena may seem random, but in truth, they are the heartbeat of a god. And every time we observe, recur, and study them, we are listening to the sun's body speak, silent, furious, beautiful beyond words. The mysteries of the sun. When a star knows how to keep secrets. We've measured the sun in units, in degrees, in light years. We've sent telescopes to orbit, built observatories in space, recorded every flare, every subtle disturbance. And yet the closer we get, the deeper we look, the more we find ourselves stepping back. Because some things about this star simply do not obey the rules we thought the universe had written. Perhaps the sun is not just a ball of fire. Perhaps it is a riddle wrapped in light. The first and oldest mystery remains unanswered. Why is the sun's outermost layer, the corona, hundreds of times hotter than its surface? The surface simmers at around 60 degrees Celsius, but the corona blazes at 1 to 5 million degrees. This defies every law of thermodynamics. Imagine standing next to a burning stove, only to find the air kilometers away is hotter than the flame itself. Physics calls it a paradox, but maybe, just maybe, it's a hole in our understanding. Scientists speak of alpha waves, magnetic reconnection. But what if the truth lies beyond language, beyond theory? The second question is more haunting. Could the sun be conscious, not in the way humans are? But could it be a living entity, one that pulses, breathes, reacts, and changes with rhythm? The sun follows an 11-year magnetic cycle. It flares, then rests, it breathes fire, then exhales silence. In that strange regularity, there's something that resembles a heartbeat, a solar breath. Could a star carry a form of life too vast for us to comprehend? Then comes the final mystery, the sun's true ending. Science tells us that one day, the sun will expand into a red giant, swallow Earth, and quietly fade into a white dwarf, but is that really the full story? Some theories suggest it won't die gently, but in a sudden, brilliant flash of final pulse that vaporizes everything before anyone realizes what's happened. Others believe the sun will send out one last surge of unknown energy, a wake-up call of sorts, a cosmic whisper to any remaining intelligent life, "I once lit your dreams." None of this is certain. The sun, so seemingly obvious, so present, so clear, is, in truth, one of the darkest spaces in our knowledge. A star that not only burns, but knows how to hide. A source of life that not only shines, but knows how to remain silent. And maybe, just maybe, within that silence is a message not meant for ears, but for minds willing to tremble before the strange, terrifying beauty of the universe. The end of the sun, when the final flame fades. All life has a beginning and an end. Even the sacred star that has lit our skies for billions of years is not exempt from that truth. The sun, seemingly eternal in the eyes of humankind, blazing as if it could never fade, is in fact counting down. Each day, the light we receive is not only a gift of life but a fragile slice of the time that remains. When the sun reaches the final stage of its existence, it will not begin with darkness but with light. Not silence but a deafening crescendo. Because the sun will not vanish like a candle snuffed out. It will become a final, monstrous blaze, a red giant. It will swell to hundreds of times its current size, swallowing Mercury, then Venus, and then Earth. There will be no atmosphere, no oceans, no forests, no mountains, no voices. Only a scorched planet, consumed by the very light that once nurtured it. But even that is not the end. As its core runs dry, the sun will no longer be able to support its own weight. Gravity will win. The star will collapse inward, fold into itself, like a soul that has lost its fire. And then, in the vast quiet of space, all that remains will be a white dwarf, small, dim, cooling over endless time. The skeletal remains of a once mighty sun, drifting silently through the void, breathless, dreamless. Humanity will no longer be there to witness it. But if someone or something far in the future looks up and wonders, they may see a faint glimmer in a distant sky and ask, where did that light come from? And the answer, though no one may hear it, will echo across the silence, from a star that once lived as a promise. The sun will die, but its death is not meaningless. From its ashes will come carbon, oxygen, iron, all the elements needed for a new planet, a new life, a new story. And somewhere, someday, perhaps another being will awaken under another sun, and dream. Philosophical meaning, a flame whispered from eternity. The sun is not just an astronomical body, not just a source of light, not merely one among billions of stars. It is an ancient mirror, reflecting the deepest questions humanity has ever dared to ask. Where did we come from? When did life begin? And what does light truly mean? For millions of years, humans have looked at the sun not only with their eyes but with their minds, with fear, reverence, and unspoken longing. It was the first god in every civilization. The first clock that measured time, the only flame that could light an entire world without ever needing to be lit. What makes the sun great is not what it possesses but what it gives away. It burns itself so others may live. It shines not to survive, but to bring life elsewhere. And in that act, we are no longer witnessing physics, we are witnessing a cosmic lesson in sacrifice, unconditional love, and a form of existence so noble it asks for no name. Perhaps the sun wasn't meant to be understood, but rather, to be listened to be learned from, to teach us how to be like it, to live so that others may see, to warm, without needing to be touched, to disappear yet leave behind light for 1,000 years. And then we understand, the sun does not only live in the sky, it lives in the eyes of those who cherish life, in the dreams of children seeing their first sunrise, and in every heart that knows. Sometimes, the greatest power is to shine silently. And that is the story not just of a star, but of us. Of the light we grew up with, of the death we'll never live to witness, of the sun, a silent teacher, a mother who burns herself just to keep life warm. If something in this story touched you, if you've ever looked up at the sunlight and felt your heart grow still, then leave a like to let us know that the light has reached you too. And subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the journeys ahead into a universe that is not just vast, but deeply human. There are many more stories to tell. Stars without names, mysteries yet to be unraveled. We'll see you again on the other side of the light.
Not every apocalypse arrives like thunder. Some come quietly, like a cold breath sweeping across the sea. And then, life disappears. We often remember the dramatic endings, the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs, the ice ages that froze entire continents. But there is another chapter, more ancient, more silent, and just as devastating, one the world has mostly forgotten. This is the story of the Ordovician period, a time when Earth exhaled ice and more than 85% of all life was lost in silence. After the Cambrian, where life exploded in strange and surreal forms beneath ancient seas, Earth entered a new era. Biodiversity flourished. The oceans teemed with coral reefs, shelled creatures, and drifting alien organisms. To an outside observer, the planet seemed calm, peaceful, balanced. But deep beneath that surface, something was shifting. Something cold. It didn't come with fire. It came with frost. As oceans receded, glaciers advanced, and the sun no longer felt strong enough to hold life together, Earth entered its first great extinction. Life shrank back into corners of survival. Species that once thrived on the seafloor became fossils locked in frozen stone. This is the story history forgot, but today we will remember. The rocks will speak again. The creatures buried in silence will rise and tell the final chapter of a world no one remembers. Are you ready to enter Earth's first mass extinction? Because sometimes the greatest catastrophes are the ones no one talks about. About 541 million years ago, Earth entered a strange and glorious phase that scientists would later name the Cambrian period. It wasn't just another chapter in the planet's history, it was the beginning of everything. An explosion, not of fire or stone, but of life itself. In a blink of geological time, life on Earth changed forever. From a dull, lifeless world where only drifting microorganisms and primitive algae floated in the vast oceans, Earth suddenly became vibrant, diverse, and bizarre. No other time period witnessed such a sudden surge in the number, form, function, and biological complexity of living organisms. In less than 20 million years, a mere heartbeat in the age of the universe, nearly every major animal phylum known today emerged. No longer were there only blobs of organic jelly or photosynthetic bacteria. Life began to see, to move, to build shells, and perhaps most significantly, to think. This was the birth of animals, and with it, the first true race for survival began. One of the most astonishing things about the Cambrian explosion is that it seemed to occur simultaneously all around the globe. From the seafloors of Canada to sediment layers in China and coastal cliffs in Australia, scientists have found fossils of similar creatures from the same time. It's as if the entire planet declared in unison, "Now is the time to live." But what triggered this mysterious explosion? Many current scientific theories point to a combination of factors. A key cause may have been the rise in oxygen levels in both the oceans and atmosphere, the essential fuel for supporting complex life. Before that, oxygen was too scarce for animals to grow large or develop energy-hungry organs like brains and muscles. But when it became abundant, evolution ignited. Organisms could now become bigger, faster, more complex, and most remarkably, they evolved eyes. Yes, vision itself was a turning point. Once creatures could see predators or prey, nature became more dangerous than ever. The evolutionary arms race began. Defensive spines, offensive tentacles, armored shells, and even the first attempts at camouflage began to appear. It was during the Cambrian that the natural world first discovered death by predation. With hunters and hunted, food chains were born. From there, natural selection became the law of the land. The slow perished. The adaptable thrived. Evolution accelerated. A planet teemed with hundreds of thousands of newly formed life forms, many of which would vanish within a few million years, leaving behind fossils so strange that paleontologists today still struggle to determine which end was the head and which was the tail. Creatures like Anomalocaris, nearly a meter long with large compound eyes and spiny grasping appendages, became the ocean's first apex predators. Hallucinatia, a tiny worm-like being with suction cup legs and spikes on its back, lived up to its dreamlike or nightmarish name. Apabenia, with 5 eyes and a bizarre tube-like claw, looked as though it had fallen from another world. Each species was a testament to evolution's limitless creativity, no longer confined to simple shapes, but bursting with alien designs and bizarre adaptations. Yet perhaps the most sacred truth of the Cambrian is that it gave rise to us. Without it, there would be no vertebrates. Without vertebrates, no fish, no mammals, and certainly no humans. Every one of us carries in our bodies evolutionary traces stretching back hundreds of millions of years, rooted in those primordial seas. Our noses, eyes, and spines all whisper the legacy of ancient creatures long buried beneath layers of stone. We are complex organisms, but we are also descendants of chaos, born from an age of wild transformation, savage competition, and unimaginable innovation. And here lies the greatest wonder, that life, fragile, unpredictable, seemingly so easy to erase, could surge forth in such abundance, such variety, and with such relentless force. The Cambrian was a gift, an unthinkable origin, a loud, radiant beginning, a moment in time when life declared for the very first time, "I exist." And from that declaration, the story has never stopped. If you could travel back to Earth 500 million years ago, you wouldn't recognize it, not because it was old or decayed by time, but because it was an entirely different world. There were no forests, no flowers, no birdsong echoing through the sky or rustling leaves beneath your feet. Instead, you would see a barren, lifeless land, a landscape of raw, unyielding rock and a thick, hazy atmosphere. The sky might not even be blue, but instead tinged yellow from the dense blanket of CO2. Yet don't let the silence fool you, because just beneath the waves, the real world was quietly breathing. This was an Earth that had never known a footprint, a planet where no creature had yet dared to step onto dry land. Every pulse of life, every flicker of movement, every spark of evolutionary promise existed solely within the ocean. At that time, the ocean wasn't just a part of the world, it was the world. It was home, haven, and horizon, and from its depths, the most extraordinary things began to emerge. Picture this. Below the murky surface, a strange and beautiful world was awakening. There were no dolphins, no dazzling coral reefs, no sea turtles or sharks. Instead, creatures unlike anything you've ever seen, and perhaps cannot even imagine, swam, crawled, and hunted in the twilight gloom. These were boneless beings, some with many legs, others with no eyes. Some glowed faintly like fallen stars. Some wore armor like shells, while others were soft and gelatinous, as if caught between a dream and a nightmare. They lived in a world without rules, created by evolution's hand as if sketched freely by a brilliant and mad painter. Some resembled insects, but stretched as long as an arm. Some had elephant-like trunks, yet were the size of a fingertip. Others had no clear heads, but still hunted with precision. Some even had 5 eyes, watching in every direction at once. There were no boundaries to biological creativity in this age, because the ocean allowed it. Water, the magical substance of life, cradled every oddity, protected every fragile form, and nurtured every evolutionary gamble. On land, the first footsteps might have been the wind's lonely caress. No trees, no roots, not even moss. But beneath the sea, small beings were learning to adapt. They weren't just surviving, they were evolving. Every new eye that appeared was a breakthrough. Every spine that sprouted was a battle cry. Life beneath the waves was not peaceful. It was a silent battlefield, without screams, but full of ruthless pursuits. And from these underwater wars, evolution selected its champions. Not always the biggest, but the fastest, the smartest, the most sensitive. What's remarkable is that these sea creatures had no lungs, no bones, no voice. They didn't breathe air like we do, didn't speak, didn't walk, but they could sense the world through every vibration in the water, every shifting current, every subtle change in temperature, in ways far more refined than modern animals. For them, life was a wordless symphony, played in pulses of motion, in dappled light filtering from above, in the scent of minerals drifting from the Earth's crust. This world had no clear day or night, only moments when sunlight managed to pierce the surface before vanishing again. Yet in the darkness, life still shimmered. And most astonishing of all is this: every one of us, humans, elephants, whales, eagles, even the tiny ant on your windowsill, all trace our origins to those ancient, ocean-dwelling beings. Our ancestors once had no feet, no spines, no minds. But they lived, clawed their way into existence, one heartbeat at a time, in the deep blue womb of the world. So when we look out at the ocean today, we may just see waves, but in truth, we are looking at the farthest memory of ourselves, a place where all creatures once began, where there were no lines between the weak and the strong, only those who lived and those who vanished. The sea isn't just water, it is living history, the cradle of evolution, the ink that wrote the first line of the human story. And perhaps the most sacred truth of all, even when no one was watching, the ocean created, experimented, and dreamed of life. We are latecomers, but if we understand what came before us, we may learn to better cherish every fragile being, every drop of salt water, every fossil buried beneath stone from a time when the ocean was everything. Part 3. Cambrian creatures as if from another world. Close your eyes and imagine you're sinking into an ancient ocean where light barely touches the bottom, and every current carries the memory of hundreds of millions of years. As you peer into the gloom, you won't see fish or seaweed or anything resembling modern marine life. What appears before you are beings so bizarre, so alien in appearance, they seem to have emerged from the mind of a cosmic dreamer, or perhaps from another world entirely. This is the realm of Cambrian creatures, the first animals to have distinct body shapes, specialized organs, and the clear, unwavering goal: survive at any cost. But if you think they bear any resemblance to life as we know it, you'd be wrong. They look like nothing you've ever seen, read about, or even imagined. These were evolution's first wild drafts, raw, strange, beautiful in their grotesqueness, before nature refined their designs into something more presentable. Let's begin with Anomalocaris, literally the strange shrimp. One of the planet's first apex predators, it stretched nearly a meter long, enormous for its time. With a squid-like body, large compound eyes like those of a modern fly, and two spiny hook-like appendages to grasp prey, it glided through the Cambrian seas like a silent nightmare. Its circular mouth, shaped like a buzzsaw, could crush the exoskeletons of smaller creatures. It didn't swim like a fish, didn't crawl like a crab. It slid with eerie grace across a world that had never known anything like it. Then there's Opabenia, a creature so strange that when paleontologists first reconstructed it, even their colleagues laughed out loud. A soft, flattened body, 5 eyes perched atop its head, a long tube-like snout ending in a pincer. Scientists couldn't even agree on which end was the front. For years it was mistaken for a fantasy, but it was real. It lived, and it thrived for millions of years in a world that had no rules. Now meet Hallucigenia, a name inspired by hallucination. Its thin, noodle-like body walked on spindly legs, while terrifying spikes protruded from its back. Scientists initially drew it upside down, thinking its spines were legs and its legs were spines, a mistake that perfectly captures how surreal and unpredictable evolution was during the Cambrian period. There is no modern creature that looks like Hallucigenia. It is the ghost of a fever dream recorded forever in stone. And then there were others, so many others. Wiwaxia, crawling like a living pincushion, its body covered in scale-like plates. Morella, a small bug-like creature with feather-like limbs and elegant, soft fronds. Nectaris, half fish, half squid, gliding like a spirit through underwater mist. Each creature was a strange, brilliant spark in evolution's first great fire. Their value isn't just in their oddness, but in their meaning. Every Cambrian creature, no matter how bizarre, was an experiment in what life could become. Some disappeared after only a few million years. Others left behind legacies that shaped the future. The first exoskeletons, modern arthropods. tentacle-like limbs, squids and octopuses. Primitive nervous systems, the centralized brains of vertebrates. They were the origins, the blueprints of all life that followed. And perhaps the most humbling truth is this: all these so-called alien creatures didn't come from Mars or some distant galaxy. They came from Earth, from the same seas you swim in, the same waters you splash in on summer holidays. Life doesn't need to look like us to be intelligent, meaningful, or beautiful. It simply needs to be. And the Cambrian period was the first era where being was enough. Logic and symmetry came later, but this was the age of wildness, of raw imagination, of nature dreaming without limits. We might laugh when we look at their shapes. We might shiver. We might even doubt they were real, but they were. They ruled this world before the first blade of grass sprouted, before the skies ever knew a wing. And though their forms are gone, their memory lives on inside of us, in our eyes, in our spines, in every unconscious reflex we possess. The Cambrian period wasn't just a time of strange creatures. It was the first living library, where nature wrote and rewrote the rules of survival, trying everything from foolish to genius in search of one vital answer: how can something live? And from these outlandish answers came the world we now call home. Part 4. Continents and Geology. Earth taking shape. Before Earth was beautiful, it was broken. Part 4. Continents and Geology. Earth taking shape. Before Earth was beautiful, it was broken. In the Cambrian world, 500 million years ago, the continents as we know them didn't yet exist, not as unified lands with soaring mountains and fertile valleys. Instead, they were scattered fragments, drifting like forgotten rafts on a restless ocean. These slabs of crust, raw and ancient, bore no trees, no soil, no song of wind through leaves. They were barren, gray, cracked, silent, the bones of a young planet still figuring out who it was. This was a time when the Earth was not yet Earth, at least not the one we know. It was still assembling itself, piece by unstable piece. The tectonic plates, massive, invisible sheets floating atop a sea of molten rock, were in constant, grinding motion. They collided, rifted, slid past each other with a silent, geologic fury. From space, the planet might have looked like a mosaic in motion, a shattered puzzle rearranging itself every few million years. The land masses were small, scattered, mostly clustered near the equator. These microcontinents, like Laurentia, Siberia, and fragments of what would one day become Gondwana, drifted and spun slowly. There were no polar ice caps, no mountains with snow, no green, just rock, vast, dry, empty rock, occasionally scorched by volcanoes or cracked by quakes that split the earth like brittle clay. Rain fell not to nourish, but to erode. The land was lifeless, yet it was moving, always moving. And this movement mattered, for beneath the surface, a war of fire and pressure was raging. Deep inside, the Earth's molten mantle boiled and churned, pushing up ridges along the ocean floor, where new crust formed, glowing and raw. Elsewhere, old crust was being devoured, dragged downward into the depths in subduction zones, an ancient recycling system older than any life. These forces, invisible and relentless, were sculpting the surface of the planet inch by inch, in silence, over eons. But the most astonishing part, this shifting of continents wasn't just tectonic, it was biological. As the continents drifted, they shaped currents, climates, and coastlines. They carved out shallow seas, which flooded the edges of continents and became warm nurseries for Cambrian life. These inland oceans, rich with nutrients and sunlight, became the cradles of evolution. Trilobites, worm-like burrowers, soft-bodied predators, all of them thrived in these shallow marine plateaus, shielded from the open deep. Volcanoes erupted beneath the waves, enriching the waters with minerals. Tides pulled life back and forth, creating patterns that organisms would one day depend on. Plate tectonics, seemingly lifeless, became the pulse of the biosphere, setting the stage for survival, extinction, and rebirth. The very act of the Earth shaping itself shaped life in return. Had the continents remained still, the seas stagnant, the climate uniform, evolution might have stalled. But because the Earth moved, life was forced to adapt, to scatter, to innovate. Species that thrived in one shallow basin perished when continents drifted apart, replaced by new ones better suited for the altered world. This constant geological reshuffling became the great engine of natural selection. And all the while, Earth was becoming more itself. From these drifting fragments, the supercontinent Gondwana would slowly form, a colossal landmass that would eventually give rise to Africa, South America, Antarctica, Australia, and India. It was born not in peace, but in collision. Tectonic plates smashing together with continent-sized force. Mountains rose where ocean floors had been. Earthquakes rippled across newborn shorelines. The planet was sculpting its own identity with each tremor, each eruption, each broken seam. And though no eyes were yet on land to witness it, the future was unfolding in every crack and collision. The rocks beneath our feet, ancient, silent, weathered, still carry the memory of that time. They are the scars of a world in the making. They remind us that nothing is permanent, not even continents, and that even chaos, when given enough time, can create something magnificent. Today, we walk on solid ground. We build cities, plant gardens, draw maps, as if the earth beneath us were still. But it isn't. It never has been. It is always breathing, always shifting. Every earthquake, every volcano, every mountain range is a whisper from the Cambrian, a reminder that we live atop a living, restless planet, still shaping itself, even now. Part 5. The psychological impact and aesthetic legacy of the Cambrian world. The Cambrian world is long gone, buried under layers of stone, folded into mountains, submerged beneath seas, and scattered into fossils so delicate they crumble at a touch. But though its creatures are extinct and its oceans dried or shifted, its legacy lingers, not in biology alone, but in the very architecture of our imagination. Why is it that when we look at reconstructions of Cambrian creatures, we feel something stir? Not fear, exactly, nor disgust, but a kind of awe. A wordless curiosity, as if these beings were more than mere fossils, as if they were whispers from a place older than memory, older than myth. There is something deeply unsettling and yet oddly beautiful about the Cambrian aesthetic. It defies symmetry. It laughs at our ideas of design. 5 eyes, floating spines, bodies without heads. And yet, in that asymmetry, in that chaos, there is order of another kind, one that speaks not to the rules of human art, but to the raw improvisation of nature, creating in darkness with no audience but time. Psychologically, the Cambrian challenges us. It reminds us that life is not made in our image, that intelligence, beauty, purpose, these are human constructs layered atop a world that has never owed us explanation. Cambrian creatures weren't designed to impress or even to survive forever. They were expressions, unfiltered, undirected, born in the crucible of chance and pressure. And yet, from them came us. When we gaze into the fossilized eyes of a trilobite or trace the soft imprint of a halicucigenous spine in ancient shale, we're not just looking back, we're looking inward, deep into the ancestral memory written in our DNA. Because these creatures are not just part of history, they are part of our story. They swam before minds could think, before eyes could reflect, and yet they paved the way for consciousness to arise. Aesthetically, the Cambrian world has seeped into our art, our dreams, our science fiction. Alien creatures in movies and games bear uncanny resemblances to Opabinia or Wiwaxia. Why? Because the alien is already here. It always was. Evolution's first designs were stranger than any fantasy. They remind us that the uncanny isn't from outer space, it's buried beneath our feet. This deep time perspective has a psychological weight. It humbles us. We who build skyscrapers and split atoms, we are still descendants of something soft, slow, and ancient. We carry the legacy of those first fears, those first instincts to flee or fight, to sense, to respond. The brain, the spine, the eye, all owe their existence to experiments that began in Cambrian seas. We are not separate from that world. We are its echo, its continuation. And yet, we forget. In a world obsessed with the now, with speed, with novelty, with control, the Cambrian invites us to slow down, to listen, to remember that life has always been strange, that the earth has always been reinventing itself, that stability is the illusion and transformation is the truth. There is a kind of spiritual comfort in this, that we are not the center of creation, but part of a vast flowing river of forms, that our ancestors were once eyeless worms and spike-covered crawlers moving through water without knowing they were alive, and that somehow, out of that mystery, came awareness, emotion, art, and the question, where do we come from? The Cambrian doesn't answer. It only opens the door. And so we stand here, artists, scientists, children, wanderers, staring into the past, not for answers, but for a sense of scale, of wonder, of belonging. The Cambrian reminds us that we are not just made of atoms, we are made of stories older than stone. We are not the first dreamers on this planet. Earth itself was dreaming long before we woke up. To truly bring the Cambrian world to life, one must paint not only with light and texture, but with memory and imagination. This is not a documentary of facts alone. It is a portal, a voyage, a return to a world too old for words and too strange for comfort. The visuals must do more than inform. They must awaken something ancient inside us. Imagine the opening frame, darkness. A slow, haunting hum rises, Faint glimmers begin to ripple across the screen, shafts of filtered light penetrating a thick green ocean. Particles drift like stardust through the water. Then, from the shadows, something stirs. A creature appears, long, gliding, with eyes that reflect ancient starlight. It's Anomalocaris. Its translucent body flexes as it moves with eerie grace, casting a fleeting silhouette against the glow. It doesn't blink. It doesn't breathe the way we do, but it lives. And in that moment, so does the Cambrian. Each visual sequence in the documentary should feel like entering a painting, not static, but alive. The ocean is rendered in deep gradients of blues, teals, and grays, like an alien sky turned inward. Creatures aren't just displayed, they emerge as if waking from long fossilized dreams. Textures are crucial: the soft sheen of gelatinous skin, the glint of mineral armor, the fine details of segmented limbs and waving tendrils. Every frame whispers, this world was real. Transitions are slow, almost meditative. Instead of sharp cuts, the camera drifts like a current, as if the viewer is floating alongside these ancient beings. Occasionally, the world blurs, not from lack of clarity, but to simulate the watery distortion of ancient vision. Light bends and dances as it would have 500 million years ago, filtered through layers of primitive atmosphere and sediment. Moments of stillness matter. The camera lingers on a hallucigenia as it crawls awkwardly across the ocean floor, its back covered in wicked spikes. The lighting shifts from cold lunar blue to the warm glow of thermal vents, revealing clusters of worm-like creatures feeding off the mineral-rich plumes. These moments are silent, except for a slow, pulsing tone in the soundtrack, the heartbeat of Earth itself. Then the scale expands. Wide aerial shots show the broken jigsaw of ancient continents floating across a superocean. Volcanoes erupt beneath the waves in muffled thunder. Lightning forks across a sky thick with gas. Tectonic plates grind beneath the crust, and in the background, animated overlays map their movement in glowing lines. It's a reminder, the ground was never still. To complement these visual tapestries, augmented elements appear, not as intrusions, but as guides. Subtle overlays reveal anatomical diagrams of strange creatures, X-rays of primitive organs, time-lapse morphs showing their descendants across ages. These cues help the audience understand, but never interrupt the magic. The soundtrack flows with the story, ambient, orchestral, otherworldly. There are no synthetic distractions, only tones that breathe, that echo through deep time. Occasionally, a distant roar, the sound of shifting rock, or the eerie clicking of ancient limbs adds tactile depth. It is music that doesn't tell you what to feel. It reminds you that you're not in your world anymore. Color grading is essential. The palette shifts by layer of depth. Light cyan above, fading to dark cerulean, then to the ink black of abyssal zones. Creatures near the surface are bathed in filtered golden rays. Deeper down, bioluminescent flashes pulse like language, illuminating the outlines of life in complete darkness. And perhaps the most powerful moments are those of contrast. A soft-bodied worm writhing in sediment, juxtaposed to a planet-shaking subduction quake that drowns the seafloor. A microscopic eye forming in a larva, matched with the blazing formation of the supercontinent Gondwana. Micro and macro, intimate and immense. Earth as organism, as artist, as myth. In the final scene, the camera pulls away through layers of rock, water, atmosphere, back into the present. Fossils lie quiet in stone. The ancient sea is now a dry mountain, but in the quiet dust, something glints. a trilobite's eye, perfectly preserved. And we hear faintly the echoes of a time when the ocean dreamed and Earth began to remember itself. This is not just a visual story, it's a resurrection. And it must look, feel, and sound like nothing we've ever seen, and everything we once were. Part 7. Suggestions for the next topic. The ambiguous era has ended. The bizarre creatures that once ruled the oceans now lie silent, pressed deep beneath ancient stone. Yet even in silence, they continued to tell a story, not just of life that once was, but of a journey that has never truly stopped. Because Cambrian, at its core, is not a destination. It is an opening chapter. The prelude to a symphony that stretches across hundreds of millions of years, where each note is a burst of evolution, and every pause is a mass extinction cloaked in stillness. As the final light of the Cambrian seas fades, a new door opens, one that leads us into even more ferocious, dramatic, and magnificent epochs. A world where life doesn't just expand, but begins to transform, to fight, and eventually to take its first breath on land. But not all movement is upward. Sometimes Earth fights back, and when it does, what once thrived can vanish almost completely. The first of these cataclysms comes swiftly, the Ordovician extinction, Earth's first great purge. No asteroid, no explosive volcanoes, just ice. An ancient ice age creeps in, freezing the shallow seas and killing off over 85% of all marine species. It is a quiet apocalypse and a stark reminder no life form is guaranteed permanence. But Earth breathes again, life returns, and then something extraordinary happens. A creature with bones begins to crawl from the sea, first with clumsy fins, later with sturdy legs. In that moment, the conquest of land begins, quietly, timidly, but with revolutionary force. Dry land, once sterile and empty, becomes the new frontier. Gravity, sunlight, open air, all unfamiliar and all irresistible. The planet shifts in return. Plants rise, primitive forests emerge. Trees pull carbon from the skies, releasing oxygen, cooling the world, and transforming the air itself. But once again, abundance breeds instability. The Permian period ends with a cataclysm unmatched in all of Earth's history. Over 90% of species disappear. The sea dies, the skies choke, methane bubbles up from the depths, a suffocating silence falls. And yet, life endures, and when it returns, it dreams bigger. Dinosaurs appear, vast, magnificent, towering. For 160 million years they thunder across Earth, a living monument to evolutionary might. Strength, speed, grace. From ocean depths to volcanic highlands, they dominate. Until one day, a flicker crosses the sky. A meteor, fire, darkness, extinction. And in the ashes, a small fur-covered creature shivers but survives. From it come mammals, and from then, eventually, comes a species that asks, where do we come from? The answer does not begin with humankind. It begins with trilobites, with hallucigenia, with apobenia, with rock and ocean and fire, and with the earth itself, breaking and rebuilding again and again. The Cambrian journey has not just shown us how life began, it has revealed that everything we call stable is only temporary. Natural history has no place for the unmoving. It belongs to those who adapt, who evolve, who rise again after every fall. So if you've ever looked into the ocean and thought, this is where it all began, you were right. But the next question must be, and what came after? Walk with us. The story continues. Before humans, before the dinosaurs, before forests swayed in the wind or snow-capped peaks stood in frozen silence, Earth was already a world so wondrous, so unimaginable that no myth could contain it. A blue planet, not because of trees, but because of oceans. No voices, no songs, only nameless creatures drifting through the endless currents of time. The Cambrian period is gone, but it never truly vanished. It lives on in every breathing organism today. In your eyes, echoes of the first vision that pierced the watery light. In your heartbeat, the distant drum of ancient fins pushing against the current. In your spine, the living legacy of hundreds of millions of years of trial, failure, and survival. We are not merely descended from apes, nor simply born of mammals. We are the living memory of the Cambrian. We are the most articulate answer to a question nature began asking in silence. Can life emerge, change, and endure long enough to tell its own story? The answer is yes, and that answer is us. So when you look up at the stars, remember, Earth was also a dream of rock, of water, of life flickering into being amid the chaos. And though we left those ancient oceans long ago, somewhere deep inside us, we are still swimming. The Cambrian has closed, but the journey is far from over. Ahead lie mass extinctions, towering monsters, the first brave steps on dry land, and eventually, us. We are not just the storytellers, we are part of the story. And the story is still being written.